Hello and welcome to Saved, Not Scammed, where we expose manipulation, uplift the truth, and where we always remember Jesus didn't need an upline, so neither do we. My name is Kayla, and on this channel, I like to expose faith manipulation in the top 1% of multi-level marketing schemes. Now, today we have a different type of video than I normally do. Today we are going into Reddit, specifically their anti-MLM subreddit. I'm not really like a Reddit girly. I just downloaded it and I typed in under anti-MLM the word Christian, and I just pulled up some really interesting Reddit, whatever they're called, and I wanted to go through them with you today and just get into some deep combos. A lot of them are maybe not so kind per se to Christianity, and as a self-proclaimed baby Christian, I wanted to discuss them with you, see what your thoughts are, whether you're a Christian or not, and see what we got to talk about. We're going to talk about cults today, the bite models specifically, and how that pertains to Christianity, MLMs, and, like I said, cults themselves. The first one that we're reading today is Connections Between Evangelical Christianity and MLMs. Beachbody. Hello, fellow MLM haters. I grew up in evangelical Christianity. I knew a girl from church who is now a Beachbody coach. This was from 4 years ago. Beachbody is no longer an MLM. Here are some things I've noticed that connect between evangelical culture to MLM culture. This hits close to home because my home church they consider themselves evangelical. Number 1, ignoring/glamorizing lack of qualifications. Evangelicals famously say things like, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, to support their lack of qualifications to be in certain positions in life. Seemingly harmless, except that this leads to things like unqualified Americans providing medical care to children. The Beachbody coach that I know has zero training in health wellness fields, but is encouraged to provide advice and sell products related to health and exercise. She regularly tries to provide advice on Instagram. I've watched her videos, and truly, her form for most exercises is really not good. She may actually hurt herself one of these days. I can only talk about my experience with this. There's lots of different things you can volunteer for at your church. So we've got, children's ministry, security, ministering itself. And for all of those things, the church had many classes and things that you had to attend in order to participate in those things that were pretty thorough. There was also lots of training involved to ensure that you had lots of knowledge about whatever you were supporting them on. And so I do feel like, there was lots of help and support. But I know not all churches are like that. And so I do feel like this absolutely could be true for a lot of churches where, like, if you feel like you're qualified to help in children's ministry, but you have no background in, supporting children or in early education or, of that nature, and then you just go, start helping kids and you're there for 2 hours, it's a small amount of time, but at the same time, you can do a lot of damage in 2 hours. So especially when a lot of those kids might be, like not in school yet. And so that's the one time that they're with like a teacher-like figure, and you're that first example for them of what a classroom setting might be. So yeah, I definitely agree with this person and their observation. Number 2, asking for money for products, services that are better provided by others. As a classic example is mission trips, in which youth group kids go to impoverished slash exploited nations to build a school, despite the fact that this is a poor choice of service provider. On top of that, they usually try to get other people to pay for them to go via fundraising efforts. If you care so much, why not use all that money to contract actual builders to go do the building, or put that money into the local economy and pay locals to build their schools? Another story, the Beachbody coach tried to fundraise from other churchgoers so she could afford to go to a stupidly expensive private Christian college so that Jesus could be a part of her education. $40,000 a year tuition for a degree that provides no job prospects. She went. So now she's in massive student debt, which is what her MLM is supposed to now save her from. The irony. Anyways, now she tries to sell health and exercise advice as a service. These services would be far better provided by someone else. But when that is pointed out, it becomes a pity fest of, but why not support me? Because I'm a stay-at-home mom. Meanwhile, I could just download the freaking Shaun T or P90X workout systems and get the exact same experience. The workouts themselves aren't terrible. So, biblically speaking, I do think that mission work has kind of strayed away from the way that it was explained in the Bible. Mission work was designed to spread the word of the Lord, to spread the word of salvation and, of the good word of the Lord. Building buildings when you're not qualified to do so is definitely not something I think that people should be doing. I think she has a very, very valid point here, and I absolutely agree with her. Now, mission work is incredibly valuable, and I think especially with young teenagers, young adults, specifically young adults, I think it is an amazing opportunity not only to grow in your faith, see the amazing parts of the world that you might not have ever been privy to. I mean, God made this beautiful world and you get to see it and be impactful in someone else's life. Oftentimes, if they're, working a job, they have to take a leave of absence. They can't get paid the entire time that they're gone. And so they're really doing it with no pay. And it is spoken about in the Bible where, the church usually does fund them, and the church funds them through, not per se like fundraising, how you think about it today, but, saving up their money, saving up their tithing to be able to provide for them, not for luxuries, but, for food and clothing. They do bolster the economy in some ways by being able to, buy food there, buy lodging, etc., things of that nature. So they are in a way doing it, but I do absolutely see what she's saying in terms of making sure that qualified personnel are actually doing the building, if that's the kind of activity that they're participating in. But if they're just preaching the gospel and, doing that kind of stuff, that seems to me like that should be what the main focus is when they're going on mission trips. In terms of when you're looking at college, I do not have a college degree. I took many AP courses when I was in high school, but college, it just wasn't in the cards for me in terms of finances. When it comes to getting an education, when you think about it at 18 years old to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, it's so crazy to think about and to think that far ahead of what will this degree, what kind of job, where will the market be, will AI take my job in the future? Like, I can't even fathom, thinking about that. And I'm so glad that I took the position that I did, because we were so against debt and we were so against, owing anything to anyone, that we didn't want to take out any student loans. And I was already so far in my career at the age of 18. I know that sounds crazy, but I was already, as soon as I got out of high school, I was already in line for a promotion. I had already been promoted while I was in high school. So anyway, long story short is you know, it sucks that she made those decisions, but I can't really blame that lady for that. It just is what it is. So I'm sure there's so much more to say on that subject, but I'm getting a little lost in the sauce. So I'm going to move into 3. But if I forgot anything, please let me know in the comments. You guys always say what I didn't say, and I'm like, oh, what a good point. Number 3, pretending everything is great so that you can evangelize. / sell. If evangelicals gotta evangelize. I don't know why I can't. Say that 10 times fast. So they try really hard to present that Jesus solved all their problems and could solve everyone else's too, even if they're struggling deep down. Questions are only encouraged if you can still arrive at the right conclusion. The MLM Hun that I know confessed privately that she's really struggling financially and had to get another job on top of her MLM to pay the bills. Same woman goes on social media to talk about the wonders of having such a successful home business and how great it is to be home with her baby. See, that to me personally is lying. I don't like that. During a time when many employers would actually give paid maternity leave. She's working her MLM and getting no maternity leave benefits. So now she needs another job. Would this ever make it to her profile? Not a chance. I sometimes feel pity for her being in this situation, but my pity turns to rage when I see her perpetuating the cycle by trying to recruit more people. And that's valid. I mean, maybe not rage, but like absolutely frustration. Like, you know what it's doing to you. Why would you try and recruit others when it's going to do the same thing to them? And then they ask the questions, do you see any other connections between these cultures? Now, I personally don't feel like I've come across maybe 1 or 2, but most evangelical Christians are not like living in the clouds. They're not like, oh my gosh, life is just amazing because I have Jesus. Like, they're human beings and they know that they're sinful in nature. They know that they're frustrated, they're angry, they're like not all the time, but they get that way, and that like life sometimes isn't the best. And like their posts on social media, if that's what we're comparing it to, because that's kind of the example that she gave, don't always reflect that like, oh, but I'm just so glad I have Jesus. It's like, you know what? Remember that God's got this. Oh, girl. Like it's not always butterflies and rainbows and God, and I don't necessarily see that. Tell me if you see that. I'm asking you guys a lot in this one because this really is a conversational one that I want to talk with you guys about. And once again, I'll try not to make this too terribly long, but these are some great questions. But I don't necessarily experience that. And if they are, rainbows and butterflies, maybe they got a great antidepressant, because I know I do. And I still, talk about the hardships and talk about, my alcoholism and talk about, those kind of things, right? So, that is what it is. So anyway, let's move on to the next post. It says, Huns and Christianity. I'll try to keep this not too religious as possible. However, one thing that always bothers me about Huns is how they always go on about their religion. Majority of the times they are Christian. I consider myself to be a Christian, so seeing how these Huns go about their faith has often bothered me. That was a huge issue I had, and that was the reason actually why I stepped away from my faith while watching anti-MLM content last year. She goes on to say, I'm assuming all these are girls. I don't know why. It could be a guy. Anywho, first off, they'll try to seem like a good person because of their faith. Just because you believe in a religion does not automatically make you a good person, nor should it excuse any of your wrongdoings. A good person is someone who has good morals and values and treats others with respect. I don't know if any of you guys like anime. I love anime. And it reminds me of Attack on Titan, where there's a conversation about what makes a good person. And gosh, it's been a while since I watched it, like a month. I've watched a lot in between that time. But it's like, who am I to judge who's a good person or not? But anywho, second off, by the way, Solo Leveling. Highly recommend. It is on Crunchyroll. If you have not watched it or have Crunchyroll, it is so good. Highly recommend. Second off, they often talk about how blessed they are from God because of their businesses. To me, I see that these companies doing more evil than bad. Snaps, I agree. In order to succeed in an MLM, you have to be greedy and lie a lot. Wouldn't the practices of getting sales in MLM go against what the Bible says about greed and lying? These companies encourage their loss of morale. Sometimes being involved in these companies makes people do the unthinkable. There was a post on here where this woman was a part of Amway, attended a funeral. She pretended to know the person, but turns out she was only there to get people interested in her products. She went up in front of everyone at the funeral and went on about how the deceased person's disease would have been prevented if he had used her company's products. She was kicked out immediately. What kind of sane person does that? God certainly wouldn't want that going on in churches or at funerals. Has anyone had the same thoughts when it comes to Huns and religion? Yes, ma'am. Once again, could be a sir, I don't know. But I agree with everything that this person says. This is what the whole channel is about. Absolutely, I agree. They didn't specifically say that the person at the funeral was a Christian or had any Christian thoughts, but what a crazy story. Christian thoughts. You get what I'm saying. Why do Huns promote their Christianity all over their social media feeds, but me no see them doing much Christian things? Like, not using misfortunes and tragedies to your benefit, not taking advantage of vulnerable people, not being greedy, giving back, donating their time to help the less fortunate. I see a lot of delusion, greed, selfishness, hate, polarizing opinions, using people, etc. But let me go back to minding my business while my 9 to 5 is paying me right now as I go volunteer at a food bank. Okay, girl, get it. This one I think is actual girl because it says Jersey Girl Moving. I just thought that this one was funny. But so true. These are the comments to this one. And it says, and Jesus said unto Karen, recruit them for your download. Monate 15:12. And Jesus proclaimed unto his flock, pass thine offering plate to the left, everything you own in thine offering plate to the left. Avon 8:2. This Christian cult I used to be in was full of MLMers, and they banned MLM talk from church because of that story about the temple. It was such a huge issue, it came to that. Probably the one actual Christian thing they did. This comes from one of the Redditors said, I called my local Christian radio station to tell them that essentially one of their advertisers was an MLM. And someone commented and said,
Dave Ramsey has praised network marketing as a great second passive income stream for, say, getting yourself out of debt, but never mentioning the chances someone's going to increase their debt by getting into an MLM is far more likely.
Dave Ramsey's earlier radio co-host was Roy Matlock Jr., Primerica, and the founder of Primerica donated $77 million to Jerry Falwell Senior's Liberty University, so the tentacles go deep.
A quick summary for those who don't know who Dave Ramsey is. He is described by ChatGPT as an American personal finance expert, author, and radio host, best known for his straightforward Christian-based approach to money management. So you would think someone who is a personal finance expert would be not a proponent for MLM. So finding a comment and multiple other comments linking him to MLMs was a bit surprising. So that's why I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into this.
Dave Ramsey is essentially asked a question where a guy writes in saying that his friends are joining a pyramid scheme. I don't remember which one it was. And he asks, is it a pyramid scheme? Are they like that back from the olden days? And can they actually make money? So we'll listen to what Dave Ramsey has to say about that.
Federal Trade Commission says that 99% of the people that join an MLM lose money. That's a staggering statistic. It's hard to actually believe. I'm not sure I do believe it. The AARP did a different study that came with different numbers, came with different results. So I haven't looked into the methodologies on the studies to tell you, but they say that 27% of the people that join an MLM actually make a profit, and that 70, whatever the balance is, 73% lose money. Not quite as harsh as the FTC number, but I think if you've just got good walking around sense and you've got a few decades under your belt, we can all agree that the vast majority of people that start in an MLM do not make money. They lose money, whether it's well in excess of half. There's a high.
So that's what Dave Ramsey has to say about it. And he goes on saying, a little bit more about, some other junk. But the AARP thing kind of caught my attention. So AARP says if you're unemployed or underemployed, MLM might look like a good way to raise cash, but the reality usually doesn't match the promise. 1 in 13 U.S. adults have tried multi-level marketing at some point, according to a 2018 AARP study. And it's hyperlinked. Only 1/4 of those participants, so 25%, however, made a profit. Nearly half of the distributors lost money, and 1/4 broke even. Of those who came out ahead, more than half earned less than $5,000. And since April, the Federal Trade Commission has chastised 12 MLM companies over claims that they or their representatives have made about seller income during COVID-19 crisis. So that means about 12.5% have made less than $5,000 according to them. So when I clicked the 2018 AARP study hyperlink, it brought me back to this article. So the FTC has a very large PDF document going over the entire details of their study. It has source documents, it has, the names of who researched it, has everything on it. And the AARP just links you back to the same article that is very small. Who would you believe? Who would you believe? Who would you believe? That's from Easy A if you don't know. Okay. So underneath Dave Ramsey's videos, I wanted to point out a couple commenters, and it says, my ex got into 3 MLMs, turned our house into a warehouse of products she ordered to sell so she could keep advancing up the ladder, tens of thousands of dollars of crap. This one says, my wife and I were part of an MLM for 10 years and we lost over $120,000. Don't ever get involved with one. Another commenter said, I once overheard an MLM newbie training session in a hotel conference room adjacent to mine. This young gal was telling these aimless kids to cry like a baby to their relatives until they got what they wanted from them. They were also practicing their guilt tripping on mock calls to relatives. It was disgusting. I wanted to walk over there and tell those kids that they must have greater self-respect to succeed in life. I forget which MLM it was. Probably Cutco Vector. So we have talked a little bit about cults now, and she had mentioned, the cult church that she was in. And I wanted to go a little bit more in detail because I thought that was important in this one. So behavior control, and I'm going to try and just pinpoint the ones that are very specific to churches and MLMs. Modifying behavior with rewards and punishments. So, the rewards of like leveling up with MLMs, there to me is no reward like that in church. If there is a reward like that within your church, let me know. I'd love to know. whether I'm there at church or not there, I'm treated the exact same. If I haven't been there in months and then I pop up one day, which is the case right now, I haven't been in a while, I would be treated the exact same. They might be like, how have you been? I haven't seen you in a while, but there would be no malice in that at all. Restrict or control sexuality. Obviously, there is some conversation regarding, same-sex relationships. I think that same-sex relationships are absolutely okay. I don't see in the Bible when they talk about it, it's really talking about extreme promiscuity and really like promiscuous behavior. It's not talking about a loving relationship and living together and creating a life together. It's not talking about that. And those were, of course, like different times. So that's my takeaway from it. If your church is like so against same-sex relationships, that's another thing to look at, and really dive deep into those biblical verses and like read them in their entirety and see what you come back with, and form your own opinion on it, because I know I have, and it didn't look to me like a loving, beautiful relationship between two people is not okay. It looked like people who are doing very crazy actions were in a deep, dark place. So that's that. Control clothing and hairstyle. Once again, I don't think that my church doesn't control it. I see all the ladies wearing whatever the heck they want. You wear a tube top, they're cool to tube top. Like, everyone's pretty respectful of what they wear. Like, I probably wouldn't wear a tube top at church, but everyone's pretty respectful of what they wear. They're not, wearing crop tops or anything, but like, they still wouldn't look twice at you if you did. And I'm saying all of this to ask yourself, does my church do this? Does my church do this? And to what extent? And does and of course the MLMs as well. Exploit you financially, MLMs. This is a big one for MLMs. How much are you spending? Are you, of course, meeting your PV requirements? Are you getting the new products? Are you a product of the product? Did you get the new product? That's, important. Restrict leisure time and activities. Are they, saying, are you working on you? What's your mindset? All of those things that they try to manipulate you to do, especially specifically when they're telling you to read the books and listen to those podcasts and get on those calls and do all of those things and pressuring you and making you feel bad if you don't. That's a huge one for MLMs. All right. Next one is information control. Deliberately withhold and distort information. That is huge with MLMs. They're withholding their actual information, like their earnings statements, just like we read in some of those other Redditors, that they were saying one thing on social media, not meaning it. They're distorting that information, etc. Forbid you for speaking with ex-members or critics. They are not going to tell you to seek out this information. If they had nothing to hide, they'd be like, go see our critics. Form your own opinion. I would always tell you, go to someone who is like totally against Christianity. I watch videos like that all the time where I'm like, what does someone have to say? Like Exodus, like, they're totally like breaking down what's wrong with Exodus. That's been like an interest of mine lately, because they're like, there's no proof of Exodus. I'm like, I want to know everything. Because I want to form my own opinion. I want to form it. And no one at my church is going to say no to that. Not a single person or anyone that I know in my religion. You discourage access to non-cult sources of information, same kind of thing. Divide information inside or outside, same thing. Generate and use propaganda extensively. They will share the same videos. They'll be like, oh my gosh, Becky has this great video. You should go see it. They'll share it everywhere. And it's like, I was like living in my basement and I like thought I had nothing to do. I had 2 followers on my Instagram and like I thought I had nothing. But now here I am. I'm like a freaking millionaire. We all seen them. We've all watched them. They're cringe cringe, cringe city, but they're shared throughout everything. Use information gained in confession sessions against you. They will absolutely do that. That's actually a sales tactic. If you are talking with, someone that they're trying to get you on, let's say Arbonne, and you're like, yeah, I've been really struggling with, the belly fat, blah, blah. They'll be like, oh my gosh, Julie, I know that belly fat is really, really, stubborn. This new product is really good. Julie, you said you want to get rid of that belly fat, right? Right, Julie? Right? Right? Listen, Julie can have all the belly fat she wants. Maybe her little ovaries, her little womb needs that. Okay? You don't know. None of your business. Gaslight you to make you doubt your own memory. Huge. Require you. And in confession sessions, if any pastor does that to you, walk up on out of there. Absolutely not. Require you to report thoughts, feelings, activities to superiors. Never had a church do that. Encourage you to spy and report on others. Misconduct. Never had a church do that. I don't know if they do that in MLMs. But I have heard in anti-MLM where they have had people do that. And thought control. Instill black versus white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking. Yes. Yes, they have. That is for the MLMs. Us versus anti-MLM. Even calling it anti-MLM, it makes me feel like it's us versus them. And one thing I try to make clear in all my videos is that at least 99.9%, which is nearly everybody, I think are wonderful people. My mom was a part of it. She's a wonderful person. I think that they are just wrapped up in something that they're in it. They don't see it, and that's okay. I want them to get out. I want them to, see the truth. They're not bad people. I totally understand that they're just wrapped up in something, and no, they're not bad people. So it's not me versus them. I'm just here to break down faith manipulation specifically in those people who are in that very, very tippity top, who are using it to manipulate the masses to try and get them to say, God says this is the best opportunity for you. In churches, when it comes to this, it should be never, ever us versus them. It should always be welcome all. It should always be my church. Oh my God, I love them. We do a lot of work. When I say we, I unfortunately have never partaken in this. They have a prayer tent. They'll go into our poverty-stricken neighborhoods. They'll do prayer tents. They do lots of work with the homeless, the less fortunate. They'll do there's a bunch of shelters and stuff that they'll bus them in for Sundays, and so that way they can be at service on Sundays. It's really, really cool. And so it's just everyone's welcome. Everyone should come in. It should never be, ever be us versus them. Allow only positive thoughts. Oh, what a good MLM one. Only positive people can be around you. Any of those negative haters who don't think you could succeed, cut them out of your life. They're only stopping you from succeeding. No, Bookie. No. Let's see. Using excessive meditation, singing prayer, and chanting to block thoughts. There is a lot of singing at our church. It's a grand old time. I don't think it's necessarily to block thoughts, but I do know that there's a very specific mode that it puts you in, a very emotional mode that music puts you in. But I do feel like that connects you with God. I do feel strong that puts you in a very close space with God. And so I don't think that there's any harm to that. Let me know if you object. But okay, last one, emotional control. And then we'll be done with this video. Instill irrational fears, phobias, or questioning or leaving the group. Absolutely. With MLMs, I definitely think that that's well, your next person could be the person who puts you at your very top. And then, of course, leaving Christianity, you could go to hell. So, that's a huge one. That's a, I mean, hands down, that's huge. Label some emotions as evil, worldly, sinful, or wrong. Now, this is a very specific one. Label some emotions. I would not say any emotion specifically is labeled as sinful or evil or wrong. It's more, thoughts or actions, right? The thought of killing or harming someone, the thought of cheating on a spouse, the action of cheating on a spouse, like those would be, but the emotion of hurt or anger or frustration or like an emotion would be fine. I don't see, those are two different things, and I don't see an emotion being sinful. Promote feeling of guilt, shame, or unworthiness. I definitely have seen quite a bit of Zoom calls where they're making them, they're like, guys, like, we could have done better, like, what's going on with us? Like, I've seen lots and lots of guilt. I have not seen that in a church before. Shower you with praise and attention. I've seen that in both churches and MLMs. The difference would be what is the intention behind it. MLMs, the intention is greed and money. In churches, a lot of the time is just the excitement of having like another congregant, another person, in the group. You're not really getting anything out of it, just excitement of having another person if you're not the pastor or someone, because it's not like they're getting, money out of it. It's not like you're getting anything out of it, just another person. Shun you if you disobey or disbelieve, absolutely, from MLMs. I would not say that churches do this, but tell me as a Christian if that is incorrect. Teach that there is no happiness or peace outside of the group. That's one to sit on. Because I would say you can absolutely find happiness if you're outside of a church, and peace outside of a church, if that's the cult like atmosphere. I would absolutely say you could still have happiness and peace as long as you still have God in your life, as long as you still have Jesus, the Bible in your life. It has nothing to do with the church. But having a community is definitely really helpful to your experience. But it by no means is a requirement for happiness and peace. Because it's specifically talking about the group. So, yeah, I've never been taught that per se, and I've never been told that. So, anywho, what do you think? There's so many thoughts. I want to hear everything. I love it when you guys like have thoughts throughout and comment like multiple times, because I'll get like a ding and like, 15 minutes later another ding, and I'm like, oh, she's at this part now. Oh, she's at this part now. It's like the absolute best. It's so fun. Sorry it's been so long, but I appreciate you guys so much. And you have an amazing day. Bye.